Go.
This call is being recorded.
All right. Hello, everyone. It's day 2 of the COVID calls. I'm Sree Sreenivasan coming to you from the Upper West Side. We're not in quarantine, but it certainly feels that way when you hear about everything being shut down in New York. Every day, as long as New York is mostly shut, I will use this opportunity to chat with friends, to catch up, and to also share what's happening in the world and to ask questions. And we'll try to have experts join us and random folks and friends and just everybody. I miss people, and this gives me a chance to feel connected to them. I'd love your feedback. Sree at sree.net, Sree at sree.net. And I'm on Twitter at Sree and on Instagram, SreeNet. And we're using the hashtag Sree COVID-19 call. And I will look for your comments. So today we're calling this the Healthy and Helpful edition, or Helpful and Healthy edition, and where we want to share some helpful things we've looked at or heard about or seen online. So if you have anything you'd like to talk about, please just jump into this call. I'm joined already by some of my friends who I've seen in recent days and ones I've not seen in much longer time, including my friend Maria Drago, who I've not seen in a couple of years. I'm going to ask her to share her story a little bit, and then we'll go around and meet others on the call, and then we'll have her share some ideas. She said she's been compiling some useful ideas, and I want to hear those, and I know you will as well. We're also recording this so that people can can listen later, but of course you can participate now. So enough wind up. Maria, hello.
Hi, Sree. How are you?
Great to have you with us. You have 2 Twitter handles. Most of us can't handle one, and you have 2 handles. So start by telling us about them.
Sure. And it's probably, I wouldn't recommend it to a lot of people. But yeah, several years ago, after studying at Columbia, I started a blog called Filmiholic, which was all about Indian movies, mainly Hindi movies and some Tamil films. And from that, I ended up getting some freelance writing gigs and did that for about 10 years on my weekends and free time, while I was also working full time at the UN in training and then also as a communications specialist. So I've just stepped away from that role a couple of months ago, and I'm figuring out what I'm going to do next. And a couple of years ago, also, I think this kind of came after the passing of my mom, actually, who was from Ireland. I started turning a lot more to the Irish side of my family and everything, and I started Twitter handle Ivernian I, and so that's the one I've been using more recently. But yeah, so that's how I end up with 2 Twitter handles.
And Ivernian I, spell it and tell us what it means.
Sure. So it's Ivernian So I like your eyeball. So Ivernian is kind of another way of saying Hibernian, which is sort of an old way of referring to Ireland. I think it comes from the Roman, actually, who used to call it Iverni with 2 I's at the end. So yeah, it was just a way to kind of engage with people around the Irish arts and so forth in New York, because there's, I'm sure you know, there's a massive Irish community here. There's theaters and all sorts of things, and also back in, keeping an eye with what's going on in Ireland. So, and that's what I've been looking at a lot recently, especially with regard to all that's going on with the coronavirus. So there's been some really cool things that I've seen over there. So yeah. So that's
And you should know, I'm glad to hear about your Irish connection and all this Irish sharings, because I have to share it with my Irish friends. There's a Irish business organization in New York, and I've had the pleasure of attending and even speaking at some of them. And so I'm going to connect you to a whole bunch of folks who will be delighted to know about your Irish connection and your Irish Twitter handle.
lovely.
And let's see who else is here with us. Chris, you want to say hi?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Sree. Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Gorman. I'm calling in from Manhattan. a borough where I've worked and hung out a lot with Sree over the years. And I'm home with my family today, trying to do our best to stay occupied and engaged with fun things, creative things, educational things for our daughter while we're in this, state or this crisis, if you will.
Yeah, well, crisis certainly it feels
Mm.
like it. Tell them where you work and the kind of work you do and how we know each other.
Sure, sure. So I am Director of Communications and Marketing at the American Folk Art Museum, and my role there is to run the strategy and lead the team that does everything from social media to email, media relations, visitor engagement, visitor development. So the last few days, for me at least, have been consumed by our communications around closing, which many museums have done in the New York City area, and then staying engaged with my team remotely while we use our channels to share free resources from our website, information about our collection, and other ways that our audience can engage with us and stay engaged with us during this period that our buildings are closed.
And that's so fascinating to have to go through this, right? I think we used to, and we both worked at the Met, we should tell folks. We used to
That's
always
right.
talk about the weather, storms, terrorism, but I don't think a virus was ever in our conversation about contingency planning.
No, not that I recall, but I do think most of the museums, the Folk Art Museum included, try to game plan for these things that do come up. The particulars of this one, yeah, unprecedented is probably the understatement, but certainly through what New York City has gone through in the last 20 years, from 9/11 to a blackout to Superstorm Sandy, I think there is a quicker response likely to these situations, but certainly this one's so unique. So I think everybody's just playbooks out, so to speak.
Yeah, that's, I think, absolutely right. And we wish you the best through all of this. It's a little surreal. Was it hard to come, kind of grasp the situation? When did you know at what time that this was going to happen?
So if you're asking me, I think it was
Yeah.
Wednesday night. There was a half-hour period that someone tweeted felt like a week because of all that happened.
Right.
The president spoke to the nation at 9. I think it was around 9:30 that everyone was notified that the NBA was suspending its season. And I'm a pretty big sports fan, but just culturally, I think a major sports league in the United States deciding to do that struck me as a escalation of what had already been done. And I think that's when I started to realize this is a different situation than we entered the week thinking it might become.
Wow. Yeah, I'm just still, to think that Broadway is closed, to think that those games aren't happening, because after 9/11, this certainly happened, but it was maybe 2 weeks or so. And then with the airlines started flying a week later, the stock exchange opened a
Hmm.
week later. Now it's all open ended, and that's the part that I
Indeed,
think
yeah.
is, and people are really overnight. Even for us now, we're talking on day two in New York on Saturday afternoon. Already, Spain has overnight kind of clamped down on everything. And France, I just heard, is cutting out access to cafes and things like that. It's hard to imagine France without a cafe culture. Meanwhile, in New York, people are still in all the restaurants. So I'm not sure what's happening. Let's go to our friend Patricia, who's here. Patricia, do you want to say hello and just share how you're feeling?
Yeah, sure thing, Sree. Thanks so much for doing this. My name is Patricia Kitchen, and I'm a journalist. For many, many years, I wrote about career and workplace issues, and then more recently, I wrote about weather. In between there, I wrote a little bit about social media, like the bare basics for people who were needing to learn, hey, this is something out there we need to be addressing. Um, and so I of course keep up with all the news. I recently took a buyout, and so I have plenty of time on my hands here, which is delightful, believe me. But so I've been doing a lot of reading about what's going on, and so much of this, it just brings me back to early life, early childhood. I grew up in a big old house in Massachusetts. It was my grandparents' house, and my mother grew up there. And then, my family lived there for a while. And so I remember going through the old attic upstairs. It was just this repository of earlier generations, all these sort of memorabilia, things related to World War II, and my uncle was fought in it, and other people, and just earlier times too. I don't know, the 30s, just stuff there. And so my grandmother and I would go up there, and sometimes she'd tell little stories, but not too much detail. And I later came to find out that during the Depression, she went around the neighborhood selling shoes to people in the neighborhood. And it just, all this brings up to me the idea that people have gone through this type of, well, not disease oriented, but this type of thing. And we find ways to get through it. We find ways to be resilient. It's very, very hard. And I guess I'm just always looking for that. Wow, how are we finding ways to handle this, and how are we helping one another? Because I think also this is a time when this in some ways can bring communities together in a way that we've sort of fallen apart recently. And this is something that affects everyone, can affect potentially everyone. And so I'm kind of looking for signs of that too, where we reach across and we don't even think anymore. Well, I can't say this completely. You're not thinking as much about the political situation. You're more thinking about, hey, can I help this neighbor over here with they're out of whatever it is they're out of. Can I just share some of mine? So I guess I'm thinking along those lines, as well as how do you figure out what's coming next? It's, as far right now, certainly it's big problem with supplies and food and medication. That could be an issue down the road. Understand a lot of the ingredients are made in China, so there could be that. But you can only take it like one day at a time here, and just try to anticipate what you can do for the near future, and then see what is revealed. So I guess that's what my thinking is.
Sree, can I jump in there, because something Patricia said struck a chord with me.
I think Sree maybe is a little bit off. Sree, you're muted.
He may have muted himself. Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe he's back.
Well,
Yeah.
it's funny, Patricia, because actually the last 2 days, so I have a lot of family in Ireland, so a lot of what I watch on Twitter and engage with, it comes from there. So there's a woman named Helen O'Rahilly, and her Twitter handle is just as you would think, HELENORAHILLY, like a hilly piece of land. But anyway, she was in London for 30 years with the BBC and so forth. She's just moved back to Ireland now, and just bought a home, and she's getting all set up and everything. But in the last couple of days, she really mobilized people using a hashtag, self-isolation help, because also in Ireland now, the kids are out of school. People are at home. There's a movement, even sort of a social movement, pushing people to close the pubs so that you don't have people gathering. And so it's been remarkable, because literally in about 3 days' time, she's all sorts of people have started to volunteer, because I think they were trying to especially take care of anyone who might have, issues where they need to stay indoors and they can't go out to the shops if they're immune compromised, or if they're older maybe, and so forth. And it's really, really been remarkable. And at the point now, somebody created, of course, something online that you can do it. But initially, people were responding to her tweets saying, I'm in North Dublin, and if anybody needs, their prescriptions picked up, or some groceries, or their dog walked, or whatever, tweet at me here, and so forth. And of course, now 3 days later, somebody set it up where you can do it all digitally online. But in the morning, she's remarkable. She was sending one tweet after another to different regions around the country, saying like Sligo.
Hey, I think you went silent.
Yeah, we lost her there for a second.
Hey,
Folks, we're back. So you were saying how people were doing this, Maria?
yeah. So people have been, initially they started just tweeting back at her saying, yeah, I'm in this suburb of South Dublin or whatever. If people need prescriptions picked up or their dog walked, I can help, and so forth. But over the last 3 days, people have now automated it, and so there's a map, and you can see all over the country, basically in Ireland, where there's tons of volunteers and where there's still volunteers missing. And basically, you just go onto this site and you either say, I can offer help or I need help, and you take it from there. But she's been going around tweet by tweet this morning to different parts of the country, basically saying, Sligo, what's wrong with you guys? Come on, we need people here, here, and here. And it's really, really it's been so heartening. I mean, because also you see the kindness in people that, right away everybody's rising to the occasion to help out their neighbors or people who may be, on their own. So it's been really great.
That's awesome. Can you tell us the URL or the Twitter handle so that I can take notes in the chat room? I'm taking
Oh,
notes and then I'll
ter-
share that out. So if you're
terrific.
on the computer, you can do that, or I can do it now.
Yeah, no, I definitely will. The hashtag is self isolation help. But yeah, I'll respond to your.
Self-isolation help. And
Mhm.
of course, that doesn't have a location, so maybe people are using it in other places also. And that
Oh,
can be both good and bad as more and more as something becomes more popular. Let's see. I wanted to say also to Patricia that she is one of the most helpful and generous people I know already, and you could hear it in her comments about today. Uh, in her instinct is to help people, and you should follow her. She's at Patricia Kitchen on Twitter, at Patricia Kitchen. And I'm putting these handles and hashtags and everything in the chat room, and I'll share it after as well. I see my friend Mohan has joined us. If you want to say hello, Mohan, you can. Otherwise, you can just
Hi,
listen.
hi everybody. Yeah, it's nice. I just popped in. I was trying to figure out what was the theme of the conversation, and I think I got it. Just
Yeah, so we're
looking
talking
forward.
about being healthy and helpful. And Mohan, you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, in the context, I mean, I've been looking at what's going on right now. My wife is in the medical field, obviously, and so I get to hear, how the hospitals kind of react to this in New York City and how they see it, and obviously the sort of the whole, sort of the analysis, what's going on, where it came from, where we're going, and it's interesting because I actually look at it as not maliciously, but I actually look at it as a very interesting and a very I wouldn't say timely, but very impactful thing that's going on because till now, if we look at Syria, for example, so that's the current thought process. My personal, what I do, I'm a technical, I'm a software guy. I've got a startup that we're running, and so business for us is obviously at the early stage of our business is shot. It's like bad tidings. We're in the travel business, and travel business is like pretty much wiped out. At least $1 trillion worth of economy is probably shot. So, but the bright side of things is that we as a society do progress and we learn and we react and we move on. But the amazing thing about this is the way I would look at this situation that's happening right now is the Hiroshima and Nagasaki in how society, what that impact of that incident was, and in terms of how society learned and moved forward, and reflected on that, continues to reflect on that. I think this is that moment, and we have not had this moment at all. I mean, at least in recent times, and who knows how the dynamics of this whole thing back in the 1900s was not felt, and this is actually worse than that. It's at a 3%, 3.8% mortality, whereas the thing about that was at a 2%. So, and 15% hospitalization, which I think is probably not. I don't even know if we have data points. This, I think, is a sea change, and I think there's so much it's going to change in terms of how we look at what we do every day and the economic impact and the way structural problems that we have in our society. I'm just hoping that a lot of positives will come out of this. Thank you.
Well, you're also a very positive person, folks. You just heard someone say his industry is going to have $1 trillion in losses. His startup is shot, he said, and his next sentence was, "We as a society will come together and learn." So, Mohan, I salute you for that. I hope you aren't right and things are able to bounce back, and I hope your startup is going to be okay. But I totally understand where you're coming from, and I wish you the very best. And also your wife, who's in the medical field. We are saluting doctors today, as we should every day, but doctors, nurses, administrative staff, orderlies, everybody in a hospital are frontline workers now, and we're so grateful. I was so upset this week among all the headlines I saw, the one that I missed and for a couple of days, that the coronavirus doctor in Italy in charge of the whole thing died of coronavirus. So
Oh,
upsetting.
wow. I didn't know that.
So
Yeah,
upsetting.
that's fascinating. I mean, it's like, remember the Chinese doctor in Wuhan who died,
Yes.
when he was treating, right? And but there he was derided, rather than sort of, hailed. And unfortunately, the political speak doesn't always follow human considerations. But thank you for your kind words. But I think we look at this as a golden opportunity where we, as a startup, is just going into the market. We look at this as a peregrine rising from the ashes. So it's our opportunity to get people's ears and roll up our sleeves and try to see what we can do. If we can impact travel today for tomorrow through our startup, I think then we have essentially put our place in the value chain, right? I mean, so sometimes it's a creative opportunity. So that's why I think I am hopeful, and sometimes it takes a bad situation to kind of find the sweet nugget of opportunity. But as far as doctors, I got an opportunity yesterday to listen to. My wife was looking at what the new protocols were, what first responder kind of things they needed to do as a collective hospital, and so I just got the rare glimpse into how the hospital operations kind of figures. But it was interesting. It was interesting to kind of see how they think and how because they're not looking at us as colloquial, or they're not looking at us casual onlookers, right? They know what they're talking about. They know what exactly it means. They get patients from outside the world. Now you have you've got sort of bans on travel, etc. What does it mean to a patient coming from somewhere who needs this treatment? What do we do? I mean, what's our answer to that? So there's a lot of positioning and response that they have to do as serious people. And it was nice as a casual person to be able to get a first impression of that. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mohan, and good luck to all of us, and good luck to your wife. Anyone else wants to say hello? They can. I see Clara is here. Clara is calling in from Torino, where she shared yesterday what was going on, and I'm hoping, Clara, you can say hi for a couple of minutes and share your story. What's the difference? As of yesterday, you told us that as part of this lockdown, only one person per family is allowed out of the house, and that the parks were all crowded because people are trying to get exercise outside, but you can only go to supermarkets and only go to pharmacies. Any updates, Clara?
Yes, hi. So I went out today to the supermarket and the pharmacy, actually two supermarkets. And so I live in the city center and I walk until one of the main squares and it was empty. There was almost no one on the street. It was also after lunch, so Italians have weird habits. But I mean, I was shocked that there was no one. I probably crossed around 5 or 6 people. That was until I got to the supermarket where I had to wait outside because they limit the amount of people that can go in. And then you have to keep the 3-foot distance. And they make you wear gloves. And then they're also very, very careful about asking people to wear the gloves and maintain the distance. And there was a couple, and the store manager went crazy because she was like, if they find you together here, we will be fine. And she was like super stressed about it, which reinforced the fact that it's only one person per family that should go out. I also went to take out the trash, and there was no one. That was about an hour ago. And it's crazy because it's a Saturday night and not even cars going around. So it's surreal. It really is. It's a weird situation where you're supposed to stay home, but at the same time, you have to go out. And then because I live in Italy now, but I'm originally from Venezuela, I guess my muscle memory goes back to when you couldn't find things. So I get stressed when I go to a supermarket because I'm like, oh, I need this. Maybe I should get more because maybe next time when I come, I won't find it, which is not the case. With the exception of a couple of things that you cannot find, they're really stocked. So again, I'm sorry I keep saying it's weird because it is. It's so strange.
I totally understand that. And here in New York, I was just in Riverside Park with my wife. We went for a long walk, and it was not empty. It was crowded with people, but we were all trying to stay away from each other. And we didn't run into anyone, but if we did, we would have just done the namaste and moved on. But you do want to talk to folks, and you want to talk to the dog owners and all of that, and you just don't see it. So I wish you the best. We're thinking of Italy. We love Italy. Most of us have been on the call, have been there, and I worked at the Met. I used to say the Met is a love letter to Italy, and then the whole thing is so much, goodness from Italy is reflected in America, and starting with the name itself, right? America is named after Amerigo Vespucci. So thinking good thoughts about Italy. Let's go back to Maria. She's been collecting some helpful ideas. She already shared one. Hashtag self-isolation help. But you've been collecting other ideas as well, and so have I. So why don't you give one, and then I'll give one.
Uh, sure. I think if folks have maybe heard of the writer Austin Kleon, Kleon, he's done a bunch of books about showing your work and Steal Like an Artist. And he just put out, he has a newsletter that you can sign up for. And his most recent one is a guide to working from home, quarantine-friendly art activities, and more. And I think folks may enjoy that. And also, if I can just share another one, Benjamin Dreyer, who's a wonderful copy editor, and he has a very funny Twitter account, sometimes quite political, but also he just shares a ton of helpful grammar information. He shared a link for a writing newsletter, and I'll get the details of that and I'll share it with you, Sree, that he was pointing to, because he was saying, I think a lot of people are, possibly going to be doing some writing at home over the next couple of days. So I'll send you that link.
Thank you. That's very helpful. When my wife, Rupa, who some of you know, heard that, and she's at Rupa online on Twitter, when she heard that Stony Brook University, where I teach 2 days a week, is moving to remote teaching, and that I wouldn't be traveling basically 12 hours a week because I have 3-hour ride out to Stony Brook one way, she said, oh, good, you can work on your book. So I think a lot of people are going to be doing that. I'm not going to be working on my book. I'm spending my time doing things like this and prepping for Social Media Weekend online next Saturday. And we're hoping all of you will join us. And one of the things that I hope people will get time to write, read, spend time with their family, but not too close, but I hope they'll be able to do that. Let's see. One of the helpful things I read was answered a big issue I have, that restaurants need our help now, and but you don't necessarily want to go to a restaurant where you have to worry about the hygiene, about the food, and etc. And so I shared a tweet this morning that came from someone in Philly who was talking about a Philadelphia idea, but no reason it wouldn't work in any restaurant, that offers gift certificates. Go to a restaurant today, buy a gift certificate, and that way they get the cash flow today, but you then get to eat 2 months from now, 2 weeks from now, whenever you feel like going out again. So you have the satisfaction of helping somebody without having the worry of actually sitting in that restaurant and eating the food today. And I thought that was a great idea. What do you folks think?
That's a brilliant idea. Actually, it's paid. It's like paying it forward. What you're doing is you're keeping things going and you're accumulating goodwill and credits for a future time. You might get some discounts and they keep the cash coming. So this, to the person who's in Italy, imagine your northern Italy, the businesses. If they could say, when everything settles and you want to come here, you could do this advanced purchase, and whenever you want to come, maybe 2 years from now, we will honor and provide you the discounted services if you pay it now. I mean, that's a very interesting economic model. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
and
thanks.
and
Yeah.
bookstores too, because I've seen this in Ireland and I've seen it in New York. I don't know. I'm sure some of you will probably have heard of Jeremiah Moss, whose Twitter handle is JEREMOSS. He has a blog called Vanishing New York, which then turned into a book, Vanishing New York: How a Great City Lost Its Soul, where basically he tracks the closing down of diners and mom and pop businesses and so forth. And last week, when the panic buying for toilet paper and everything else was really going full on in the city, and the lines at Trader Joe's were crazy, he was posting pictures from the local hardware store in his neighborhood and other shops, and he's like, these guys have got everything. They've got cleaning products, they've got hand sanitizer. There's no need to be like queuing up at your local Whole Foods for 3 hours if you would just remember your local businesses. But he also tweeted, support local bookshops in the midst of the corona crisis. Three Lives and Co. is now offering free hand delivery of books within the West Village. They also ship anywhere in the country. And they were doing this in Ireland a lot too for independent bookshops who were saying, we're really going to take a hit in the next couple of weeks. So people have been encouraged to, stock up, but buying through your local stores and so forth, so that, it'll buoy them up a bit.
That's terrific. I just shared the link. It's the tweet itself, and Jerry Moss, JEREMOSS, is his Twitter handle. And look at this coincidence: Jonathan Borstein, our friend who is down in the village, just wrote in the comments that I worked with Jeremiah Moss. We're trying to mount some events to address some of the issues raised by all this. Thank you, Jonathan. And if you want to say hello, you're muted, but you could unmute yourself and join us, or I can unmute you if you want to say hi. Otherwise, well, I've unmuted you now. Jonathan, I didn't know if you wanted to speak. I unmuted you. Let me know if you.
I'm unmuted.
Okay. He says he'll be the mysterious stranger instead. So that's fine. Let's keep sharing ideas. I have an idea around how to think about at this moment about your neighbors. One thing that our young neighbor did, she's probably 8 or 9 years old, she went and used hand sanitizer, which is so precious now, and wiped down all the elevator buttons on our floor and the handles and all of that. And I thought that was just such a nice gesture. And it really made a lot of us feel really good. And another tip about your neighbors, if you live in an apartment building, have a floor WhatsApp group or messenger group or something so that you can all share tips and know what's happening and help each other out, especially if you have elderly neighbors or people in the building. My wife Rupa is sneaking around here because she's afraid I'm on camera, but I'm not on camera, so she's much happier that I'm not on camera, so she can walk around. All right, next, anybody else want to go? Otherwise, we'll go back to Maria, who has more tips.
This is Mohan here. Can I make a comment just on the current topic?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, the idea that you're talking about in terms of, I guess, was it the East Village or wherever, so book delivery and so on. It would be nice if I don't know, whoever puts like a website or some framework where people can contribute things that could help people continue to kind of make money at the same time do some services so that there's like delivering books, delivering food, or delivering, just to sort of keep the commerce going in the city. And it's because everything sort of comes down to zero, and it needs to get back up in small portions. And I think it would be nice, and I think that would be interesting globally. As you said, the first idea was brilliant, which was sort of buying your if you will, coupons or whatever for the future in Italy. That same kind of thing. What all can you do to keep things going so that the gig economy doesn't fall through at this point in time?
I think you're absolutely right, and the more we can spread the word about doing that, the better. So please do share. And this is one of the things that the reason I'm doing this every day is so that we can have conversations and share ideas. Let's go to Maria with some more ideas.
Sure. Sree, I just sent you a link. There's a woman who's a teacher over in Ireland. Her name is Michelle, and I'm sure I'm going to mispronounce her name, so apologies to her if she hears this, but it's, I think, Colati or Colati, but I've sent you the link. She's in Kerry in Ireland, and she's a teacher, and she's already posted some photographs of setup that she's done at home for her kids who are, she's going to be homeschooling now. And it's terrific. Some of them are quite humorous, but I think one of the things that they're encouraging parents to do who are now going to have kids at home is to set a schedule for them. And she says, good morning and welcome to homeschool. Both members of the class should be seated by 9 a.m. Pajamas will not be permitted. And she has on the note, remember how lucky you are. You can call your teacher mom and nobody will laugh. You have a 50% chance of getting student of the week this week. You don't have to take a school bag with you and so forth. And you've got one of the best student-teacher ratios in the country, et cetera. But she's a primary school teacher, and she's already tweeted and retweeted a lot of helpful resources that, obviously the curriculum in New York and the U.S. is different from Ireland, but there's a lot of really cool resources in there that I think parents could find helpful.
I love this, and I'm looking at her Twitter handle is Michelle Cullot, the number one. Michelle Cullot, the number one. And the tweet that I'm looking at has a little desk or with everything lined up and speeches that change the world book, as well as other books. I think these are kids in different grades. But welcome to your first day at homeschool. And in America, obviously, a lot of people do homeschooling, but it's not as common in other parts of the world, some other parts of the world. Mm-hmm. But I think a lot of us may be homeschooling now, and that's something that they will find useful. So thank you. Great tip. Anybody else want to jump in? We have some new folks who have come by. If you want to just say hello, you're welcome to do that. Otherwise, what we're doing is using these daily chats just to bring people around a conversation. It doesn't have to have a theme, but we just gave it a theme this week, today. Tomorrow, I'm hoping to do something more around technology. And also a reminder that every Sunday morning at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, I do something called the New York Times Read Along, where we read the New York Times out loud on Facebook and now on LinkedIn, which some of you may not know we're doing that. It's been 5 years since we started doing this, and it's been an amazing experience done as a labor of love by me and Neil Parekh and Paula Kiger in Tallahassee, Steve Taylor out in Philly, Neil's in suburban DC, and we've done it all because we love print and we want to bring people together. We have thousands of people who read and listen every Sunday. And now, as a result of that, we've just gotten our first sponsorships, paid sponsorships. Not a lot of money, but certainly the fact that anybody would think of this as something giving their money and attention to is humbling. But it also shows you something that I've always believed, that if you do something as a passion project and you really put in the effort, then if money comes, that's great, and you can capitalize in it when the time comes. Otherwise, I like to say that if you won't do it for no money, you won't be able to do it well for all the money in the world. And that's how I like to think about it. And those of you who are also more at home than you might be on other days. There's also a chance, in addition to writing a book, maybe you have a side project, a passion project, something else that you've always wanted to do. And especially those of you who have taken the time to listen to me now, if you ever want to set up a time and just kind of chat about your idea, and I'm happy to give my time to help you kind of brainstorm. I love doing that. And I hope to continue to do that. So anytime, offer to everyone who's listening, just ping me and I'm happy to chat. My email is sree@sree.net, SREE@SREE.net, @Sree on Twitter, and SreeNet on Instagram. All right, let's go back to Maria with more ideas.
Sure, Sree, I just sent you 2 links. So there's one of my big passions lately has been middle grade and to a lesser degree, but sometimes young adult books. So basically, kids books for the elementary school up to high school level. And there's a writer named Gabrielle Prendergast, and she's tweeted out, if you have a kid or are a kid or a teen off school and working on creative writing or essays with questions, feel free to DM or email me for advice or feedback. So that's one thing, and she has a hashtag close the school. So I'm not sure, but I wonder if she might be in New York City. The other thing, the actress Laura Benanti, who has been on Broadway shows. I think Stephen Colbert uses her very often to portray the First Lady of the U.S. right now. But she's posted a really lovely thing that's taken off, basically saying, that these are dark times for all of us, and I'm trying to find some bright spots. And if you were meant to perform in a high school musical in your school and it got canceled, if you want to post yourself singing and tag me, I'll retweet it and so forth. So she's using the hashtag Sunshine Songs, and people have been tweeting, their performances, their school performances maybe got cut short. So they've bin sending links, and Lin-Manuel Miranda has also jumped in and is supporting that. So for anyone who's got kids that are kind of going through the disappointment of that, and for the adults who are maybe going to be first dealing with working from home in a new situation and having to present maybe, and it's not something they've done a lot before. There's a woman named Jane Bozarth, Bozarth is her last name, and her Twitter handle is just that, @Jane Bozarth. She worked for a government office in, I think, North Carolina for many, many years, but she is tremendous. Now she's out doing other projects, but she's a great expert in adult learning and in the use of technology. And I actually took a course with her several years ago on using social media as a training tool. And one of the things that I find really interesting about her is she uses Pinterest for a lot of different kind of crowdsourcing ideas and projects and so forth. But if you follow her, she's been tweeting out a lot of helpful resources for people who are suddenly finding themselves having to deal full-time with working remotely and are a bit kind of caught on the back foot. And on the more fun side, on her Pinterest page, she does this yearly thing where people will send in, those hand turkeys you used to have to do in school when you were a little kid, maybe if you went to school in the U.S. For Thanksgiving. You trace your hand and make it into a turkey. People have done such creative versions of those, and so every year she kind of crowdsources them and posts them. So it's worth checking out because I don't think many people think of Pinterest as a training or a learning tool or whatever. So I'll send you the link to her now.
I love that. Now I'm just going to try and play Laura Benanti's comment about the sunshine song. So let me just play it. Let's see what happens. Let me know if you can hear me. Can you hear? Can you hear me?
My stuff is getting canceled because I'm in the business around a lot of people, as most of us are. And this may seem silly, but I know that a lot of high schools were going to have their musicals, and those musicals got canceled. And that is a bummer. Because I know for so many of us, I know for me, my High School Musical was like a lifesaver. So if you would like to sing a song that you are not going to get.
Which is really cool. So she said tag her. So her name is Laura Benanti, LauraBenanti, and the hashtag is Sunshine Songs. And here's a song that one of the students posted. Let's see. Hold on.
Fly as free as a bird with its tail in the breeze. Even the fish in the sea must be longing to fly.
So that's a young lady who her show was postponed. She doesn't know for so long. So she sang a song called Waiting for Life. It has 200,000 views. And that's because everyone's taken it and reshared it. And so thank you. So a lesson for this is that Laura is using technology and being helpful in what she knows best. And I think it's a good lesson for all of us that if we want to do something, we can make use of the things we already know well. And that's what Laura has done. So I'm very impressed with that. Thank you so much for sharing it. We have a few minutes left. Maria, anything else you want to share before we say goodbye? And then we'll do a roundup of everybody to give them a chance to say goodbye. If they want, they would unmute themselves and say goodbye.
Sure. If I can just suggest also for anybody who loves animals, and I think a lot of people do, most people do. For me, this has been like a real source of kind of just happiness and calming down and taking my mind off things online. There is a woman, I think she's either American or Canadian, named Susanna Crampton, and she has a farm in Ireland where she has these black sheep that she uses the wool to make all sorts of products and blankets and all sorts of stuff. So she has one account where she shares basically videos now because it's lambing season in the country. So there's all these really cute videos of baby lambs looking for their mothers and out in the fields. She does this daily. She's got a whole pack of dogs as well. But what's really cool is she has a little tiny dog that she calls the world's smallest sheepdog, Inca. And this little dog, you should see her. She's the size of like a Jack Russell, basically. I think she's a mixed breed. And she comes out and chases the sheep from like one paddock out to the fields and so forth. And Inca has just had 3 puppies recently, one called Kobe, and I forget the other 2. One is Maya, and then there's the third guy, Spats. And the videos and the photographs that she's posted are just absolutely gorgeous. They, if anybody who loves animals, I think your heart will melt at them. And it's just a really sweet, relaxing, change of pace from whatever else we're all dealing with. So I'll send you links to that, Sree.
What's her handle?
I think it's a German word, ZWARTBLESIE for Ireland, Zwartables, but her name is Susanna Crampton, and the little dog is W Sheepdog, the world's smallest sheepdog, and the videos and the photographs are terrific.
All right.
To
So people should look for Susanna Crampton
and lighten the mood. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And I can tell you folks that when sometimes I do these things such as the read along when it started, or even this with just the phone calls, people sometimes say, why do you do all this? And I say, because I benefit from this. You don't have to do things that help thousands of people. You can do stuff just for yourself and take advantage of this moment and having everybody come together. I'm so grateful for Clara for joining us from all the way from Turin. Yesterday, we had a Dr. Lippy Roy who was on the show with us, and we got an anesthesiologist from Virginia who needed questions answered from a doctor who knew better than her. And that was just so wonderful that we could offer that help. And it was serendipitous. She had never heard of me or the doctor, but she found us. And that's one of the great things about the internet. When it's filled with terrible things, they're also beautiful, helpful things we all need to know about.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyone else want to say goodbye? Otherwise, the plan is to do this once a day. And ideally, I would have done it at the same time, but I want to vary it in part because of when my family will let me do this. We're in an apartment, so I'm used to doing all this when they're asleep, but so it'll depend on their schedules, but also so that we can bring in different people in different time zones. But please don't forget, 8:30 a.m. every Sunday morning, we do the New York Times Sunday Times read along, where we read the New York Times, often with a guest speaker, often a guest speaker from the New York Times itself. Tomorrow we have a best-selling author on who's going to be talking about her new book that you'll really enjoy. And then don't forget Social Media Weekend coming up on Saturday, March 21st, completely online. And we have world-class speakers, world-class workshops, and Nick Kristoff and his wife Cheryl Wudun are going to end the evening with a really beautiful conversation with them. So all of that, plus opportunities to continue learning with me. So with that, thank you very much. I'm so grateful for your time and attention, and looking forward to talking to you. Jonathan says, genuinely interesting. Thank you for doing this. I'll be back tomorrow. We're going to share tech tips, and then every day we're going to do this. So if you would like to be a featured guest yourself, or you'd like to recommend a friend or bring a friend on, please do it. I am so happy and so grateful. Thanks, everybody, and good luck to us all.
Thanks. Bye.
And stay safe, everybody.
Thanks, Sree.